Welcome, everybody, to our last guided project. Man, this is crazy. Final results of the poll: 55% my life live streamed, 45% thoughts above my head. Trying to keep your thoughts to yourself, I see, huh? All right. All right. I think I'm on board with that, though. Like, I really don't want anyone seeing my thoughts. That would just be weird. Not that my life live streamed isn't, but all right.
Y'all want people to see you going to the bathroom now? I just don't know. I'd rather you know what I'm saying.
I'll just put like a sheet over me or something, like just cover myself up. Or my son has a tent, I can just like put that over the potty and then I can just go in the tent, you know. All right. So let's get started. Today we're talking about user flows, which is very different from journey maps. And why don't we start by having somebody in the room tell me in your own words, what's a user flow?
It can be a diagram of what a user will go through while browsing our app. So every single thing would lead into an action. So you short those little actions.
Okay, Ivan, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Is that one specific set of actions? So let's say signing up, or is it all the actions a user can take at one time on the app, like in total?
All of them specifically. So sign up will lead you to a page for you to put your email. Home will lead you to a landing page. About will lead you to another page about the app and company and people that made it and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So in your interpretation, each website or each app experience would only have one user flow. Is that right? Because it would just have everything. Am I right on that?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. You're not wrong, but you're not right either, because it can really be either. It depends on it's up to your interpretation. You can have them split out by different user actions. So you can have the sign up user flow and the add a photo user flow and so forth. Or when you have everything ready all together, you can connect them all into one big user flow. Now keep in mind, the user flow is not a site map. A site map is a map of everything on the site and all the pages. A user flow is specifically a visualization of a user's path through an application. So that includes actions they're taking, options they have on every page, not just a listing of pages. Okay?
Okay.
So we talked about journey maps yesterday. Knowing what we know about user flows, how are user flows different from journey maps?
User flows are like visual representations of like key interaction moments with the product, versus journey map is not necessarily with the product, but can be.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. So user flows are very specifically focused on app-specific interactions or experience-specific interactions, where journey maps are focused on a user's whole process of solving a problem that includes touch points with our app or experience. Okay. Journey maps are also focused on emotions, emotional states as the user goes through it, pain points, those types of things. When we're talking about user flows, we don't care about emotions. We don't care about pain points. We're just mapping out a user's experience through a specific part of the application. So if we have an existing app, let's say you're working at Airbnb, how do you create a user flow for an existing product?
I would think just navigate through the app and start noting the flow, the actions.
Okay. Anyone else have a different idea?
You could actually, I guess you could observe someone else doing it, an actual user, but that's my initial guess was what Ivan said.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other opinions? So user flows with existing products can be either way, right? We can have our ideal user flow or our quote unquote happy path that you have people follow to complete a desired action. You could also have observed user flows or what the actual users do as they move through your application. And those two things could be very different. Granted, if they're very different, you have a usability problem on your hands that you need to fix. But they could be very different. They're both visualizing a user's experience within your application. One is what they're actually doing, and one is ideally what you would like them to be doing. So how about new products. How do we create user flows for new products?
Wouldn't that be all from assumptions in the beginning before designing?
Hypothesis and assumptions. That's right. That's right. Now, user flows can be used at different phases in the product, in the process. And specifically, if we're talking about discovery phase, where we're just starting to think about, look at competitors for our application, this is another moment where you can actually create a user flow. Now, at this phase, it wouldn't be a user flow for your own product, but you can construct user flows for competitors' products. And you can use that to get an idea of what competitors' experiences are like, analyze them for what works, what maybe doesn't work, and start to get an idea of how you might choose to model your own application. Okay, so that's the discovery phase. How about during the ideation phase? How would we use a user flow during the ideation phase?
How would we use it or create it? I'm sorry.
How would we leverage? Let me say, how would we leverage a user flow?
I guess based on similar products, I guess, how users are interacting with similar products, maybe.
That's how we would. Yeah, that's potentially how we would create it. And I would say leveraging. Using, in other words, we're going to use it to map out our ideas, right? So before we actually get to sketching things and designing things, we use user flows to help quickly and easily map out what different flows will look like. So we're not sitting there sketching and thinking, oh, what page needs to go here? Did we forget this page? Oh, I got to redo all my pages because I forgot this one page, right? User flows are going to help us map that out ahead of time so we don't run into that problem. Okay, so that's all I got for you. What questions you guys have for me about user flows so far? All right. You got one? Someone unmuted?
I'm looking at the process in making user flows, and step one is to have like clarifying questions. These are the same clarifying questions that you asked way in the beginning of doing your research.
Right. If you feel confident at this point that you've already answered that question and you know where to start with your user flows, you can use and leverage, and you should be using and leveraging any research you've done up to this point to inform it. This is just kind of saying if you don't have that information, or if maybe some unexpected findings came up, you might need to go out and re-ask those questions to make sure that before you get to your user flow, you're basing it off of the right assumptions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And they look like basically the same questions you would ask in the beginning of your research process, which is like, what is the user trying to achieve and what are the business objectives? And
yep. You're not going to get very specific answers to how to create your user flow or what all the pages should be, because again, you're just making assumptions at this point as to how they're going to interact with it. A user couldn't, tell you what pages they would expect to see in what order. You're going to have to make up those assumptions, but you can get an idea of kind of where they're coming from, what their goals are, and maybe what the main priority for your app or experience should be to help tailor what that user flow looks like.
Okay. Make it sense. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions so far? All right. So today we're going to use a different tool to create our user flows. I know some of your TLs already told you about this secret awesome tool called Whimsical. It's at whimsical.com and has a little preface.
Smart, by the way, because they give you 4 free boards. I tried making one and then deleting it to see if it goes back to 4, but no.
Actually, that's what happens. That's what happens when you don't wait till class, man.
You can there's a trash can button. I think you can grab it back again.
Oh, can you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so, because I did the same thing.
I see. The first time I went ahead and deleted my boards, and I got so mad I just paid for it. I was like, I'm not doing this. This is making me mad.
I actually edited one of their sample ones, and it didn't count towards the 4 free ones.
That's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I bought the subscription too. It's so worth it.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. Okay, I'm going to share my whimsical here. All right, this is my whimsical boards, some of my boards. I use whimsical for a lot of different things as a UX designer. This, in what I do in UX design and what I focus on with user research and strategy, this is my bread and butter right here. Not so much Figma and Sketch. I am more into creating the wireframes, doing the research, organizing research, and so forth. So that's what I use this tool for. Now, as a generalist, when I am doing UI design as well, I still use this tool, but I just use it for different things. I'd still use it for wireframes and so forth, but I don't get too heavy into design. I'll usually get into Figma or Sketch and do those types of things. So this tool is really versatile. You can use it for a lot of things. Today, we're going to be using it for flowcharts. I would also highly recommend checking out the wireframing in this tool. I think it's, in my experience, the best way to do wireframes if you're not doing them in a Figma or Sketch. Sticky notes is new and mind maps are new. I haven't used these too much, but you can probably imagine exactly what those tools are like. So you get 4 free boards. As you can see, I have 0 free boards left, which is fine. You can edit any of these boards, these example boards here. You can click on them, just delete all the content and rename them to be whatever you want. Each board is also infinite, has an infinite canvas. So if you need to create, let's say, 5 user flows for your homework, you can create them all on one single board. You don't have to use a bunch of different boards for that. And then you can export them as a PNG or whatever you want. So I'm going to start by opening up one of these boards. This is going to be changing a profile picture. And that's what I'm going to map out a user flow for today. And this is going to be my assumption of how a user might change a profile picture in the Flutter Messenger app. Any questions so far on kind of how we're getting started or how to get to whimsical or anything like that? You can also use other tools. If you don't want to use whimsical, that's okay. You can use Figma or Sketch or Milanote. You can use is probably a little bit difficult for this one, but I'll leave that up to you if you want to experiment with other things. This is just my own preference. Okay, so let's get into it. So today we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be working on changing a profile picture, and that's going to be what we're mapping our experience out. Now, one of the recommendations for creating user flows is to start by writing it down, okay? Writing it down in a Google Doc or something like that. However, because Whimsical is so easy to use and so easy to edit and delete, I'm going to start right in Whimsical. And that's okay if you want to do that too. The main reason that we ask that you start by writing it down, or that you see some instructions saying start by writing it down, because if you're creating a user flow in a tool like Figma or Sketch where you have a lot of different things to edit, it's going to take you, a little bit more time, although it might look a little bit more attractive. You want to make sure that you're spending your time wisely and not trying to figure it out while you're also dealing with all the complexities of Figma. And because of that, I'm just going to skip right to the chase in Whimsical because, like I said, it's so easy to create user flows. So let's get started. I am going to start by duplicating this page, dragging it over here. Anyone have trouble getting into Whimsical? Anything like that before we get started? Okay, good. All right. So we have a bunch of different options over here, and a lot of these options are going to apply between the different board types, like the wireframing and the flowcharts. But some are specifically only available in flowcharts. Some are specifically only available in wireframes. But I would recommend starting on a flowchart board for this. It's going to make your lives a lot easier. And we have a couple different options. So we have add a shape. You can also have a hotkey S for that to open up the shape panel, and there's a bunch of different shapes: rectangles, ovals, circles, these other shapes. We're mainly going to be using rectangles for this one. I'm just zooming in and zooming out here, just because that's how I prefer to create my user flows. You'll see some opinionated discussions online about what these different symbols should be used for in different circumstances. What I say is the most important thing is use what you feel comfortable with, and then make a key so that at the end, whoever's looking at it can reference the key and see exactly what all the different symbols or symbol types mean. Because when it comes to flowcharts, people, again, they have differing opinions. And if you're trying to send this out and share it with people asynchronously, and you're not explaining what you're showing, that can be an issue. You're going to have to spend more time walking through your flowchart, or your user flow rather. So I'm going to start by adding an icon here, just because it's kind of like a starting point. And right here you see add icon. I'm gonna hit icon and I'm gonna type in person, and we'll pick this woman here. And then I'm going to name her. I'm gonna name her Mila. I don't know why, it just came to me. And Mila is a registered user. So I'm going to say that she is a registered user. I'm going to center that text there and just drag it over and align it up perfectly. Okay, so this will be our starting point for the user flow. We want to have a person in mind. Ideally, you'll be using a persona. You probably have created personas at this point in your typical UX design process, so you can start with the persona you've created. That'll help also frame your reference for how they might be interacting with the application and making sure that as you design these screens, you're thinking about that persona the whole time. Okay, so we have Mila here. I'm going to start with just hitting R as a hotkey for a rectangle, and I'm going to add the first step in this user flow process. Now, the way I'm going to, actually, I'm going to start with a key. That way, it's a little bit more clear as I move through this. So I'm going to start by creating a key for the different symbols I'm going to use. Now, I already know ahead of time what symbols I'm going to use. Typically, you're going to create a key at the end, but for explanation purposes, so you guys, it's very clear what I'm adding. I'm going to add the key now. So we'll have a green box for the start of the user flow. And I just hit the rectangle button, and then for every shape that pops up, you get this little contextual menu here. So I'm going to click on the box, click on color, and I'm going to make it green. Okay, so that's going to be start of user flow. I'm going to duplicate this box by holding Option, and I'm going to say the end of the user flow is red. Duplicate again. A page in experience will be white. So if we have a box that's white in this user flow, it's going to represent a page in the experience. And then finally, I want to have boxes that represent user actions. And I'm going to make that an outline box or a dashed outline. And I'm also going to make it gray. So pretty straightforward. This is going to be all the shapes that I use in this experience. Now, sometimes when you create user flows, you'll use different colors for lines, or you might use different shapes. That's all okay. Use your best judgment as to how you feel you can best represent or best visualize a user flow, and go with it. Just make sure you add a key. Remember that the people consuming this document are most likely not going to be designers. So you want to make something that anyone can consume, not just other designers on your team. That's why it's important to use your best judgment when it comes to thinking about what shapes you want to use, what colors you want to use. Make it so everyone can access it and make sense of it. All right, so we have Mila here. Put that there. And I'm going to start with a rectangle, a green rectangle, because this is going to be the start of my user flow. And I'm going to say this is the profile page. And I'm going to give context in parentheses for each of these. So if it's a regular box, I'm going to add the name of the page and then some context underneath. So we'll start with that. I'm just going to start on the profile page, and we're going to add a little, arrow like that. You can either drag an arrow in, or when you hover, or rather click on a box, you'll see that you have options to add additional boxes right in a line. It'll draw the arrow automatically for you. So she's starting on the profile page. The next thing she's going to do, I'm thinking about this, the next thing she's going to do is take an action. So we're going to change the box to what I specified in the key, a gray dashed outline box. And the action is going to be user taps change profile picture. So that's going to be the action she takes from the profile page. And once she takes that action, a couple different things could potentially happen. I'm going to start by clicking on this box, adding another box, and then I'm going to click on it again and add a second box. So we have two different branching options here, and I'm going to scoot these up like that. And these are going to be additional actions that she can take after she does this. So starts on the profile page, taps on change profile picture. Then she can either tap take a new picture, or she can upload a picture. So those are the two things she can do after she taps change a profile picture. Now that we have
You
this
also
branching
add
path,
choose from library.
right, but I'm not doing that for this one. Yes, you could, and you can make as many branching paths as you feel like you need to for your own user flow. It doesn't have to be 2; it can be 10. And just go with whatever you think makes the most sense for your own user flow. So we're going to start with building out the take a new picture. I'm going to add another box here. Going to make it white because this is going to be a page or something similar to a page, and it's going to be the camera. Actually, is what's going to pop up. If she taps take a new picture, the camera's going to pop up, and I'm going to say the default camera app is activated. Now down here, she taps upload a picture, which is essentially going to be the same thing as getting it from her library on her phone. The photo library is going to pop up. And I'll say the default photo library opens. Now, as I'm starting to build this out, there are other ways that you can represent these actions. For example, sometimes you'll see actions like this instead of represented as a box. They might be represented on a line to show the action. That's one way to do it. You might see these little referential items I have in parentheses, like profile page with current picture. With current picture could be represented underneath, right? When you have a decision tree, so you have two different decisions or two different paths a user can take. Right now I have it coming out of this box because that's what I think works well for this. Sometimes you'll see it represented as a diamond, okay, with a yes and a no or something along those lines. Again, there are a lot of ways to create user flows. I'm just going with what I think works best for this flow and what I'm comfortable with. So don't be thrown off if you see these other things out in the wild. The most important thing is that you're representing how a user is interacting with your application and visualizing that experience, which is exactly what we're doing here. So let's keep building this out. Do you guys have any questions so far for me? Oops. So I'm going to build out a couple more. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I have one. So one thing that I am wondering about is I still feel like I'm kind of mixing this in my head with wireframes. How do those differ?
Let me answer your question after I finish this user flow, because I'm going to show you very specifically how they differ.
Cool.
All right?
Thanks.
Yeah. So I have camera app. Next thing happens, the user takes a picture, right? That's going to be the action they take after they land on this camera page. For photo library, the next thing what the user is going to do is user chooses an image from library. Okay. Pretty easy. Now, I've seen other options. Sometimes if you're in an app, you can upload from your iCloud or upload from Dropbox or something along those lines. I'm not going to include them in this flow, mainly because if this is a brand new product, we're probably going to have the bare minimum features. We're going to make it work, get it out there and start testing it. We don't want to add every single feature out there. So think about that as you're also considering your own assumptive flows for your products. Try to go with what is enough to make a user happy, and then adding on the more in-depth features later on. So the Dropbox, the Google Drive, all that stuff, we'll add that on at a later time. Right now, we're just going to focus on these two things. Okay, so user takes a picture, user chooses an image. These are both going to converge again, I think, into another option, which is going to be preview. So after they pick their photo, either they take a picture or they choose it from the library, they're going to go to a preview page. And this is where the user previews their picture in context. So maybe it's on the profile page itself. I'm not really sure. And honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. We're just concerned with how the user is moving through and what types of interactions they're going to be taking throughout the application. So I'm going to add a couple arrows on here. We'll start with this one. As you can see, if you click on an arrow, when you highlight over a box, you get like this purple outline. You just start dragging and it'll show a purple outline at the other box. Then you can kind of move them around however you want. So I'll make them look like that. Doesn't look like that, but for right now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. We'll get to that later. So these are going to come together into preview. User previews a picture in context. Now, we're going to have a couple different options. Again, we're going to branch out again. Because what I think happens after they preview, they can either confirm it and say, I like this, let's do this, or they can say, I don't like this, I need to change this, right? So we're going to go with 2 more actions. First action is going to be user confirms new profile picture. And the second action is going to be user declines new profile picture. We'll make these both outline and gray. And I'm going to drag these up like so. Okay. So now we're getting a pretty good picture of what this flow looks like. We're not done yet. We haven't finished it. But I'm going to go back and just review and make sure there's nothing that I think is missing or that really stands out as missing to me. So Mila starts on the profile page with the current picture. She taps on change profile picture. She taps on take new picture. Camera app opens. User takes a picture. She clicks on upload a picture. Photo library opens. She chooses an image from the library. Okay. Previews and then confirms or declines. So far, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to change this because it is bothering me. So just give me 1 second here. There we go. Okay. So far I think this looks pretty good. Now, what we see here so far is this very linear flow, right? They're not really looping back around. They're just kind of staying in one linear path. But that's about to change, because if the user declines a profile picture, we're not going to create all this stuff again. She's going to go back and have the option to take a new picture again or upload a new photo. So we don't want to create all these boxes again. We can create a new line that goes back to some of the older content. As a matter of fact, I would say that if she declines it, we're going to take her back to the profile page. That's what we're going to say for this flow. So I'm going to grab this arrow here, click it. I'm going to drag it. Oops. So one thing I don't like about Whimsical, you'll probably realize when you try to create your own arrows, you can make your arrows go any direction, which is awesome, but at the same time, they can also like get crazy like this. And you can't undo that. Like, you just have to delete it at that point. So just be aware when you're messing around with arrows. If this happens, don't get frustrated. Just delete it and start again. Okay. So we're going to go all the way back. By the way, if you hit Shift, I don't know if you're on a Mac or a PC. I'm not sure if this works on PC. If you hit Shift and you scroll, you can scroll left and right, and that's very helpful when you're working in these bigger. If you hold Shift and scroll left and right, it's very helpful when you're working on these types of flows. You can also drag these. You can also click on the arrow and, do some editing like this, make them taller or shorter, or kind of go to one side or another. So feel free to play around as you kind of get into your own stuff. Okay, so if the user declines the new profile picture, they're going to go back to the profile page of the current picture. If the user confirms, then they're going to go back to the profile page too, but this time it's going to have the new profile picture. And this is going to be the end of our flow right here. So it'll be the red box that we specified over here in the key down here, end of user flow. Now again, this flow is relatively linear. And sometimes, especially if you're breaking out flows by action, like we are here, changing a profile picture, this is pretty common. If you get later in the process, or you have an app that exists, it can get pretty crazy in terms of where all the arrows go, because you're looping back in different sections, and different sections are connecting to each other and looping back upon themselves. So I would exercise caution when it comes to considering what to create your user flows on. A lot of times, these are going to be consumed by people who are not designers. And if you're sending them or you want them to look at them without you being there, standing over their shoulder, you want to make sure that it's easily digestible and very easy for them to understand. So just keep that in mind as you go about creating your own user flows. So that's it. That's our changing a profile picture user flow. Now, what we can do in Whimsical, you can export it. I can get a shareable link. I can also export, just download an image, and I can either include a background or not. So it'll just have a gray background, or it'll have a transparent background, depending on how you want to use it. You can also make it 1x or 2x. For you guys, 1x probably makes the most sense. You don't need an extra large size of your user flow unless you're going to print it out or something like that. And that's it. So what questions do you guys have for me about user flows or about this one?
Did you talk about the arrow back button, like on the lines?
The
Like
arrow back button.
If you double click on an arrow, like go to profile page, like one of those arrows.
Like this one?
Yeah, see how there's 2 arrows on the top that's purple? Like
yes.
my teacher indicated like that would show the devs like the user could push the back button and go back and forth, like if you have them both highlighted.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a good point. If you have something that you want to bounce off of and kind of go back and forth, you can oscillate between 2 pages. You can edit these arrows to represent that if you want to. It's up to you. But you have that option here. You also have the option to change the color of these lines. So, for example, I can make one green. If, for example, you want to say like, hey, this is the perfect path is this green arrow. And this other path that people are going down, which we don't really want them to do, is this red arrow, right? That's another way you can represent these types of things. So you have a lot of flexibility in here in terms of really trying to illustrate what you want to illustrate. So play around with it and have fun. Any other questions?
Do you have to create flow chart for everything you do?
I would. No, you certainly don't have to. I think this is a really good way to start to wrap your head around something you're going to be designing. So if you have a new feature you want to implement into an application, it could be a good way to kind of map it out and understand what all that includes, and try to get a good visualization of what you'll need to design ahead of time, as opposed to just kind of starting to sketch things and potentially forgetting about different paths that users need to take and so forth.
What if you have like a total new app? Would this work?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Flutter, for example, what we're doing for, change a profile picture here, this doesn't exist in the real world. This is all an assumption or a hypothesized flow. For a new app, you're still going to need to go through the design process, right? You're still going to need to sketch screens and everything else. To save yourself time when you do that, I definitely recommend going through these user flows and mapping, quote unquote, mapping out what you're going to be designing.
Individually.
By
like
way of
photo, name. Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Wait,
go ahead.
the way that my teacher explained it is each one of those boxes could be an actual like screen that you're designing. So like it's a good way to know like, okay, how many screens do I need to actually do to achieve this entire task? So it's like kind of a map for you, but also for your devs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's right. So in this example here, every single white box would essentially be a screen you need to design, with the exception of camera and photo library, because they're built in, right? They're built into the application.
That was going to be my question for you, was the flow coming back to the profile page versus the option of camera versus library. If
Like
you could
oh, right. Yeah, you could. I mean, that's another option. I think that'd be totally fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You would just kind of take the arrow and have it join up in here and kind of go back down that path. Any other questions so far?
Is there a less confusing way to represent that, as opposed to it just joining up in, like it would join right between those 2 arrows that says user pick?
I would say it would probably also be okay to join it up on the user taps change profile picture. And if you need to add a little note about what that actually means, like if you're having trouble representing it exactly in a user flow, just add the note on the line or write a little something underneath the box, and that'd be totally fine too.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to share this with you guys so you have access to it. I'm just going to export it with a background and drop it in the Slack, and then we're going to get to Joshua's question about wireframes. Okay. It's uploading now. Okay. So we said this can be one way that you kind of map out designs or wireframes you need to create. And for those of you who might not be familiar, let me show you what that actually would look like. So I went ahead and created some wireframes. Now this is going to be the type of thing you're going to do in Unit 2. This is, I actually used to be the person who instructs Unit 2, but I moved to Unit 1, so I won't be using these assets. But you can imagine that if we have those white boxes, or those boxes that represent pages, each one of those white boxes could begin as a sketch. Okay, so this is not the change of profile image. This is signing in. But regardless, if I were to create a user flow for signing in, each one of those white boxes would represent one of these sketches. Okay, for a sign-in flow. Now, after I create sketches, I went down and created wireframes in Whimsical. And wireframes are basically just a little bit more attractive, realistic version of the sketches. Because the idea with wireframes is that you'll probably eventually create a prototype and have people use it to test around with and so forth. And you'll get into all that in Unit 2. But when we say wireframes, this is exactly what we're referring to, this type of thing. So we would use the user flow to create these wireframes, tie these wireframes together in a prototyping application, and then test it with users and see if they can see how they interact with it, essentially. Cool. Any other questions for me? Okay. So let's see, 12:40. Let's take we'll take an 8-minute break. It's a little early for a break, but that's okay. I want you guys to have time to do the user flows. When we get back, we're going to do some practicing with user flows. So I'll see you guys in 8 minutes. For me. Okay, so let's get into this afternoon's challenge. And here is what that is. So I want you to take the next 30, 35-ish minutes. I'll poll you guys when we're getting close to the end. And I want you to create five assumptive user flows that could exist within the Anchor Cinema mobile app. Now you're using Whimsical, so creating the flows should go pretty quickly. If you can't get to 5, that's okay, but I want you to strive for 5. All right. You can create them in Whimsical. I know some of you guys like to use Figma, Sketch, whatever. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Use whatever tool you want. I want you to reference similar mobile apps to inform these user flows if you're struggling. So take a look at Fandango, take a look at Atom Tickets, take a look at Cinemark. If you're having trouble with the user flows, and be prepared to present. You can either create flows that are kind of like brand new and hypothetical, kind of like the profile, changing your profile image. You can also create what I call core user flows, like signing in and signing up. Like those are all valid. So just pick whatever 5 you want to go with and have fun with it. And I'll talk to you guys in 30-ish minutes. All right,
Glenn,
go for it.
Sorry, when you said 5 features, so that is 5 different things so 5 different charts, basically.
That's right. 5 different charts. Yes.
Okay, all righty.
I guess I should ask you guys a good question. 5 different. So what I sent you in Slack, that's 1. What we created in class together, that's 1 chart. Okay. I want you to strive for 5 of those. All right.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So some of them might not have as many steps, right? That had 10 steps. Signing in might only have 3, and that's okay. And they don't always have to have branching paths. I just want you to try to think about what are 3 actions a user might take on this, and I'm going to map them out visually and get as far as you can in creating as many as you can, but strive for 5. All right. I'll see you. I don't know why I think that's so funny. All right. I'll see you guys in 30 minutes.
Hey, sorry, my sound cut out. Just to verify, this is for Anchor Cinema, right?
This is for Anchor Cinema. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, time is up. So let's just jump right into this and start. Let's start sharing. Anyone who wants to volunteer today?
I can go, but I've only got 3 done.
That's all right. Yeah, totally cool.
All right. So I made a little key code because I've
Cool.
got some branches on the path that were optional. So
Nice.
yeah. My first little flow here is searching for movies near me. So the first thing the person will do is they'll be on the home page. They'll click the search bar, which has a prompt for them to enter their location. And then they'll, as soon as they, or search by movie title, and then as soon as they enter one of those 3 things, they will get movie results. The next is purchasing a movie ticket, so they can select a movie time, like once they find the movie, select a movie time, select the number of seats. Then they have the option to go to seat selection within the theater, so they can reserve a seat for themselves. And then they fill out their payment information and confirm their purchase. And the last one is to because when you go to the front page, there are movies that, like recent movies that are displayed there. So if you select one of those, you can see more information about the movie and then enter the location to search for theaters that are showing that movie near you. Or you can click an additional option to show other theaters near. Well, yeah, if you enter the location to search your location to search theaters, then it will show you the closest theater and today's show times. But then there's another optional button you can click to see additional theaters and show times. And then you can select your showtime and go to the checkout.
Can you scroll back up to the top for me real quick?
Yep.
Where your key is.
Yep.
Start path, optional, finish. Okay, so the white boxes are a mix of user actions and pages. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. Okay.
That works for this. Depending on how complex they are, and if you really want to use it as a map for your wireframes, you'll probably want to split those out. And it can be as simple as just like kind of like I had white pages and like dotted line pages, just to say these are pages and these are actions.
Yeah.
Your other option would be to just have the actions on the actual line itself and just use the white boxes as pages. Otherwise, I think this is really good. One question I have though, so for this first one, if you could scroll the searching for a movie near me, if you could scroll to movie results, that part where it says city, state, zip code, movie title, did you mean to have that loop there, or did you just not know how to get them all to go to movie results?
Yeah, I didn't know. I like spent too much time trying to figure out how to like merge it together, and eventually just like gave up because that was like, yeah,
I gotcha.
I didn't want to spend all of my time just doing that.
So what you can do is if you have this situation, if anyone else in your ran in that situation, you can actually, let's do this real quick. I'll do this with you right here on screen. If you could take those arrows that you made, or like the little rounded arrow, just delete all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, delete that, delete the other ones. And the middle one as well.
Okay.
Click on results.
Click on what?
Movie results, the end, the red
Okay.
one. Yeah. And see that little, that node? Click on that.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. Now go back on movie results.
Okay.
Click on it again. And then click on the ad.
Right here?
Yeah. Yes. Click on that.
Okay.
So you can drag that arrow up to movie title. If not, I'm going to have to do this on my and show you guys how to do it. These arrows could be improved for sure.
If you click on movie results and you know how like the little purple box is, you can drag that little purple box to the box.
Okay, all right.
Watch, click on movie results. Look it.
All right.
And you see that little, like the little box. Yeah, that thing.
Mhm.
Now click it and pull it to city and state.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Cool.
Look at that.
Piece of
All
whimsy.
right, Ash.
But I'm probably going to want to reverse these, I think.
Yeah, you can click on that and just reverse the arrows, yeah.
I spent a lot of time on whimsical.
Trumping my skills here. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Otherwise, great job. Good job.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kelsey. All right, who's next?
Me.
All right, Sagan, let's do it.
Yeah. All right, because I have some questions.
Look at this. All right.
All right, so we're doing sign up.
Okay.
And this is initial sign up where you're just like, you jump on the splash screen, you click sign up, fill in your name field and your email field, your phone number field, which is then prompt to a verification code, which you then fill. And then you're asked if you want to set up billing already. And you have the option to do so, and you have the option for not now. And once you select either of them, it goes to your home screen.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
Before we move on. So I would recommend at the beginning, you have signing up. And I noticed that Kelsey did this as well. You guys have like signing up in the green box. It might benefit you to just take that and break it out as like its own title about the user flow itself. And then wherever that green box is, instead of naming what you're about to do, say that it's the splash page, or it starts on the splash page for 5 seconds or something like that. So you actually see what the entry point is for the user flow.
Okay.
And then my next question is, each of those yellow boxes, are those all actions that a user is taking on one singular page?
Yes.
Okay. You can, or you don't have to break them out. I'll leave it up to you guys. If you don't want to break them out, you don't have to. You can have one yellow box that says fills out the page. It's up to you if you think it makes sense to do that. Like if you think it's going to benefit you to actually say that they're filling out each one of those fields. Otherwise, you can just say they complete the information on the page as one action.
So that's kind of what I started doing here, because I realized like if I break it out, this is going to get bananas.
Yeah, and you probably don't even know. Like honestly, at this phase, you probably don't even know what all those form fields are going to be yet. So it might benefit you to just say, hey, they're going to fill this page out at a high level, and then when I get into wireframes, then you'll kind of figure out what all those fields need to be.
Okay. Make it sense.
Okay.
So then we're doing the setting up your theater preferences, which is within your profile page. You select that, and you can either search by zip code or GPS for your nearest theater or your preferred theater. You either fill out your zip code or you tap GPS.
Okay.
You'll get a list of theaters via the zip code search, and you will open up Google Maps, which shows you nearby theaters, which you can select from there your preferred theater, and then it's set up and you are taken back to the homepage of your profile page, the home of your profile page. Setting up your billing and payment, you can either select credit card or online payment tools.
So hold on, let me pause you for just 1 second. All those white boxes are meant to be separate pages because that's what you have in the key. Is that right?
Not so. What I just have here, or
Okay.
I don't know how to split that up. Then
are those like actions on one page?
they're actions on one page.
So what I would do is name, since you have it in the key as page and experience, I would take one of those white boxes and call it, you can call it payment page, for example, and then you can break it off after that page. Have the decision point after that page where one goes to credit card, one goes to PayPal. And instead of saying user taps PayPal, you could say, actually that even works. User taps credit card, user taps PayPal. I think that would be just fine. Just break it up then after payment page to make sure that you're.
Yeah.
And then same type of thing for the flow above it where you have search by zip code and GPS. I'm assuming those would probably be one page and the actions would take them different places.
Yeah.
So you don't have to edit it now, but that's something that you can keep in mind as you kind of move forward with this.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
You verify, you select credit card, and you fill in your billing and payment information.
Okay.
And then you are returned to your profile page. Or if you tap PayPal, you verify your PayPal payment and use, and then you are returned to your profile page.
And those are separate profile pages or the same profile page?
They are the same.
Okay.
So loop them?
Yeah, I would say loop them. I'm going to go to the same one just so it's clear that they're the same one.
Okay. And setting up family and friends. You select that you want to add a member, or it says you're prompted add member ?
Okay.
Tap add member, and you can either choose via email or phone number, and it will either send who you're inviting an email or a text message to their phone number. And purchasing your ticket, you tap on purchase tickets. You can select your default method or add new payment. This is the same page. You select either, you can do purchase confirmation, which will, what was I thinking here? Confirm or cancel. And then you kind of like keep going. If you cancel, you go back to either, I was thinking either your homepage or back to purchase tickets. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And
yeah,
then,
I think either of those would be fine. You probably at that phase, if they're hitting cancel, then you're probably going to want to have some kind of confirm or something like that because they've already entered in so much information. But I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I answer your questions that you had ahead of time, or did you have other ones?
I think that was it. Yeah, it was mainly do I put them together kind of situation, and how to streamline it.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Great job. Yeah,
right.
Very nice. All right, next.
I'd like to go.
All right, go for it.
Can you hear me, by the way?
I can hear you.
Here we go. So I use the same key as yours.
Okay.
Green for the start. User will be the gray. Dotted page will be white. Again, will be red. So I started with the sign up login page. Either put new information or log in. If you log in, you just take you to the main page. And if you put your new information, it'll take you to your theater location page, which you can either use zip code or location. You select it from the list. You go back to the main page.
So that first one, sign up and log in, is that those main pages? Should those be the same page? Or are they different main pages?
No, they're the same.
Okay, so yeah, I would recommend removing one of them, probably the one that's shorter, and then looping it up around.
So go like.
Just make it. You don't have to do it now, but
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I just didn't want to do another long arrow.
That's fine. I don't blame you.
So I also put mine premium. So I was thinking of a membership. That which takes you to the main page here. You start it up clicking on the membership button somewhere. It takes you to the page of the membership. You click buy now. Now it wants to input payment method, credit card or PayPal. You input a credit card or PayPal. And then after you do that, it takes you back to the main page. Now to browse the movie, you click on show times, take you to the movie page.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Sorry. Sorry, I was digesting buying premium and I want to give you feedback right on the spot. So inputs credit card, add pay. So those are the add credit card and add PayPal. Those are, they're selecting those, right? Is that what that is? Like they're selecting add credit card or add PayPal?
Yes.
Right. And then they input the information. And then is there another step where they actually confirm the purchase, checkout type thing there?
Wasn't thinking of that right now.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to call it out while we're on it. Okay. You can move on.
Actually, yeah, I did it right here, but okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So for this one, movie browsing, easy. You just click on show times, gets you to the movie page. You click on the movie that you want. And then I mix this up with buying a movie ticket. So the buy a movie ticket, you start it up from the movie page. You select the time that you want. Now, if you're a regular member, it will take you to the payment method, so you can save that up. And if you're already a premium member, already has your payment saved, so you just have to click confirm. And then it gives you the confirmation and the ticket scan for the movie theater. And then you click done, brings you back to the main page.
So that's
regular. Yep.
You're linking together two flows. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be sure.
And then a simple one, how to switch your preferred movie theater. You just click on home movie theater, top, bottom, somewhere, Takes you to a theater location. You, again, click either by location or zip code. On the list, takes you back to the main page.
Okay. All right. Good job. Did you have any questions for me on this, or did it seem pretty clear to you?
Yeah, pretty clear.
Okay. So let me ask you guys, any questions on any of this stuff? I know we didn't get everyone to share. Unfortunately, I want to make sure I give you guys enough information about what's to come tomorrow and the following week. Does anyone have any questions on these user flows before we move on?
I have a quick question. When I was doing my login, I also entered, what if someone entered the wrong password?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it too early to include this? Is this more of a wireframe job?
Nope. I think that's perfectly fine. Wireframe is really going to be all about just showing what the pages actually look like. I think it's a great idea to include those error states if you want to. Like I said, user flows are one of those things where you'll see different levels of, kind of how in depth people want to get. I wouldn't recommend going too far, but certainly showing error states is a good next step. So I like it.
That was actually one of my questions along those lines was, how specific are you wanting us to go with these? Because I know you could definitely take certain levels of specificity. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that overall?
So I would say take a cue from what I shared in the Slack and what we did today in class. That's what I would recommend for this assignment. If you're getting into like checking out, or checkout flows or signing up where you have clear error states that are going to take you down a path, I would recommend building that out, whatever that path is. But otherwise, keep it at about the level of depth that we did in class today.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, guys? Okay. All right, so just to recap, user flows, visualizations of how someone moves through your application, journey map, much higher level, how someone accomplishes a goal, and showing the various touch points with your brand that the user has during that time. So two very different deliverables showing two very different things. They look kind of similar in the end, okay? So those are the differences. One's macro, journey maps, one's more micro user flows. Okay. Before we get into the assignment, I want to brief you guys a little bit about what's to come for Build Week. So later tomorrow, either in the afternoon tomorrow or early Monday morning, I don't know which way it's going to happen yet. You're going to get either an Excel sheet or a survey where you'll be able to pick your project. So each and every one of you is going to be working on your own individual project. You're going to start at the discovery phase, start doing discovery, initial research, just like we've been doing this whole sprint. You're going to replicate all that type of work, but it's going to be for your own project. So each and every one of you is going to have your own. You're going to carry that through all the way up until you work with developers to build this thing out. So expect to get something like, or expect to be choosing a project that'll have a project brief and an MVP. MVP being, this is the minimum viable product that we want to create. So you don't want to build it out too much, not too many features, because remember, the devs are only going to have a week to build this out. So don't add too much. Stick pretty closely to the project brief and the MVP. But we're getting that together. Expect to see that, like I said, either later tomorrow or early Monday. And then next week, we're not going to be having guided project time, lectures, any of this type of thing. You will have an assignment every day, and expect that assignment to kind of be like your sprint challenge assignment. So we're going to be taking everything we did in sprint 1, doing it again, but this time all with our own project. So look forward to it. It's going to be lots of fun. It's going to be lots of fun. Okay, that's at a high level what's going to be happening with Build Week. This is our last guided project day, lecture day, whatever you want to call it. So tomorrow we will have a Q&A again at noon Pacific time. So expect that. We can talk about, again, anything we did in sprint 1, anything UX related, bring it to the table. I'll also be dropping a Slido link early in the day. If you have questions or more in-depth questions you want me to cover, please add them in there and I'll cover them during our time together. Any questions on any of that stuff? All right, I'm going to pull up the assignment and we will talk about it. Okay, so the assignment for today, user flows. I want you to create 5 assumptive user flows for Newsy in the tool of your choice. Again, you can use Whimsical, Milanote, Figma, Sketch, whatever you choose. You can also, you can choose to include core user flows, so sign in, sign up, manage your account, etc., and or specific flows, kind of like we did in class today, changing a profile picture. I'll leave that up to you. Each user flow should include no less than 5 steps. So when I say steps, what I mean by that, if you look at the user flow we created today, each one of these columns is a step. Okay, so this has, not counting this first starting page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. Okay, so I want each one of your user flows to have at least 5 steps. Each user flow should also include at least one decision point. This break here is a decision point. So I should see at least one of these in each one of your user flows. Include a key for your user flows. Notate your user flows to ensure that they can be understood asynchronously. Now, this is something we didn't do too much in class because we didn't need to. Our user flows are pretty self-explanatory. But a couple of the user flows that you guys showcased in class could use a note or two, and I called that out if I thought that was the case. If something is a little bit confusing or kind of loops around in a weird way, it's okay to just add a note or two in there and say, hey, this is what this means. You don't have to do it, but if you need to do it, feel free to do that. Of course, your flow should be neat, consistent, and readable. And then as a stretch goal, this is where I want you to create a blog post. So this is not just your reflection statement. This is actually a blog post that describes your user flow creation process. So what you personally do, starting from nothing to getting assumptive user flows out there, and how creating these user flows have shifted your understanding of how your project is going to be structured, or has potentially changed the preconceived notions about how someone moves from nothing to a design product. Any questions on that? Your user flows can be exported from Whimsical as a PNG. You can create them all on one board, so you're not using up all your free boards if you want to do so. Again, this is Whimsical. You can hit your little paper airplane here and hit export, and it'll export the whole thing as one PNG. Just try to make sure that they're neat, you know, kind of aligned and in a nice row. You can also choose to get a shareable link if you'd like to do so. Just hit get a shareable link, copy it, and you can submit that as well. That'll be just fine. Any questions?
The shareable link option, it's okay to have how we had all 5 listed underneath each other?
Yes.
Okay.
Just make sure that you're titling them. So like we talked about in class, instead of having that, make sure that green one is actually the entry point, that green box. If you're using that same key, the green box is your entry point, and each user flow has a title above it. So
Okay.
for example, changing a profile picture, if I were to do it for this one, I would changing a profile picture, and you can make this like double XL and put it up there just like that. Okay. That's it. We're done. We did all of Unit 1 pretty much. So great job. It's been so much fun talking with you guys and seeing you guys grow. Honestly, I'm super impressed. This is my personal first time teaching Unit 1. I'm usually the Unit 2 guy. So I had a blast seeing you guys grow and just kind of start from nothing and getting to where you're at today. This has been an amazing experience, and I'll still be around, so you can still hit me up, DM me on Slack, whatever. We'll be chatting tomorrow during our Q&A, so I won't cry now. But all right, I'll share this in Slack. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Bye guys.
Hi, Glenn.